Hey guys, it's Down1 again here with a new video for you guys, and today I'm going to be bringing back a series I used to do, but I'm bringing it back in a different way. But way back in the day, I used to do some really old, like some of the earliest videos I've ever done on my channel are really terrible videos, but it was looking at the Xbox Live Indie Marketplace and some of the interesting games in there, which at the time no one's done, and still to this day there's not a lot of people who check out the Indie Marketplace, but I deleted those a long time ago, and then I brought it back and I called it like Indie Game Spotlight, but then I took a look at very specific games, but I haven't done that in a long time, and basically this is just a revival for it, a new look and just restarting it. I'm calling it Dyad's Indie Game Spotlight, and how I'm going to be doing it now is like a compilation style video of various games under a common theme. So let's kick things off. Today we're going to be looking at some very interesting indie Japanese shoot 'em ups actually, and I know what you're thinking, like really indie shoot 'em ups, but there really are some really good indie shoot 'em ups out there. You just really got to know where to look. So what do you say we delve into it? Okay, and the first two games I'm going to be talking about is from a company called Hikware. But the first game I'm going to mention is a game called Rayhound. And Rayhound's a really interesting game. It's hard to call it a shoot 'em up, but it is kind of a shoot 'em up because you're shooting bullets, but the key aspect to it is you don't have the capabilities to shoot. So how it works is it's a game that's predominantly controlled with the mouse, and you're this little ship, and like enemies will be shooting like lasers and shots at you, and you can't shoot yourself. So the way to kill the enemies is to move your mouse and flick your mouse really quick, like directly towards some of these missiles, and it'll like ricochet the missiles away from you back towards wherever the direction you're going. So if you have enemies shooting from one direction, just kind of ricochet it back, and that's how it works. It just works as this quick like little zipping around and ricocheting bullets. Starts out really simple, but as you really get into it and get into some of the later stages, it gets super chaotic where you're dealing with just tons of bullets coming from everywhere. You're just hectically trying to move around and ricochet and deflect all these bullets back. Really a really awesome game, really high quality. A simplistic kind of theme, but it gets the job done, and it's a very interesting take on a kind of different style of shoot 'em up. So definitely check out Rayhound. It's a unique little game. And the next game I want to mention is also by Hikware, and this game is called Warning Forever. And this is an interesting shoot 'em up as well, because basically at its core this is kind of like a boss rush shoot 'em up, because you don't like fight other enemies, you only fight one boss. But the interesting facet is that as you progress through the stages, you're fighting just this one boss, and as he goes through the stages, this boss expands and expands. It just keeps getting bigger and bigger and bigger to the point where he pretty much takes up the whole screen. So how it works is like you're just a ship, and as you go through some of the later levels, like when it starts off, it's really simple and really easy. But there's this mechanic where you kind of have like a radius and like you can angle your shot, and that comes in like really handy later on into some of the later stages, because the boss is so big that you're going to have to actually move around, and you're going to have to maneuver your shot angle and your spread and all that. So it's really interesting, almost like there's a little bit of a strategy to it, but this is really cool, unique concept to just have a boss rush mode with the same boss that just keeps getting bigger and bigger and more expansive, and then it just obviously gets harder and harder because it's just more bullets and missiles coming at you. So really crazy, interesting shoot 'em up, and it's a fun game. It definitely takes some getting used to, but once you get used to it, you find it's an interesting shmup with some interesting little facets of strategy there with how it works, but definitely an interesting concept to say the least. Okay, the next three games actually I'm going to mention is three games made by one guy actually, and he's actually one of my personal favorite indie developers, and his name is Kenta Cho. And Kenta Cho basically focuses on making strictly Japanese indie shoot 'em ups, and he has like a huge catalog of various games. I think you could look him up and find his website. I believe it's called ABA Games, and you can find all his games, but he's just made tons of shmups, and very different. Some are similar and some are just completely different, with very wide range of interesting concepts, and he's just got a unique style too. So definitely love Kenta Cho, but I'm going to highlight three of my personal favorites from him. So the first game I want to talk about is a game called Rataj. And Armitage is interesting. It's similar to Warning Forever, where you're not going through levels or anything, you're just fighting a boss. It's like a boss rush shoot 'em up, and it's just like a boss rush mode, going through various stages, just fighting this boss over and over again. But the interesting concept is similar to Warning Forever, that as you progressively go through the levels, his health starts to go up and it gets harder and harder, and we're to the point where like it becomes an outrageous bullet hell shmup where you're just dealing with tons and tons of bullets. You have a shot, and an interesting mechanic is a bomb where if you activate the bomb, it'll have like this little circle icon and it'll destroy all the bullets once they hit that like kind of area. So you really got to manage that, especially towards some of the later stages, because some of the later stages it gets so hard to the point where it's almost impossible to dodge like bullets, so you're going to have to really conserve your bombs for really critical moments. But definitely an interesting shmup, definitely an interesting style. Kenta Cho has a unique style of making his shoot 'em ups, but and really good music too. That's a common theme you're gonna find in Kenta Cho's games, because not only is the style a little bit similar through all of his like shoot 'em ups that he made, but the music and the soundtrack overall for his games are actually pretty solid. So definitely check out Rataj if you kind of like that boss rush kind of style mode, and it gets crazy hard. So I like it. It's very fun. And the next game I want to mention from Kenta Cho is a game called Tourist Trooper. And Tourist Trooper is a really awesome game. Basically, you take Tempest and turn it into a shoot 'em up. So the whole mechanic is that it's a shoot 'em up, like a vertical scrolling shoot 'em up, but you're in this like cylindrical, tube that you're just continuously going through. And you can move actually 360 degrees around this tube, but it kind of cuts off at certain points, so you kind of got to maneuver properly. You don't want to die and hit the wall or stuff like that. But you can also speed up and speed down, so you can increase your speed and speed down. And there's kind of advantages to it, like with speed up, you can kind of get through much of it a lot more quicker. But then if you speed down, you have the ability to kind of maneuver a little bit more precisely and see more enemies from a longer distance. So it's really interesting. Really cool shoot 'em up, and it's just cool because like just this mechanic, like it's a surreal experience. Like it really does feel like you're going fast once you start speeding up, and it's just crazy rotating and trying to avoid, like, not only are you shooting like other enemy ships and stuff as you're going through this, but since the tube kind of cuts off at certain points, you have to take specific paths. So it's almost like a driving game too, or like some of those old racing games like Pole Position, where you kind of have to maneuver properly or something. So it's kind of in that regard, it's just a interesting take on like a Tempest meets like a almost racing game with a shoot 'em up. So definitely Tourist Troopers is definitely one of his unique games to say the least, and I really like it. And the next game I want to mention is also by Kenta Cho, and this is actually my personal favorite game of his. It's a very interesting concept, and I never thought anyone would ever do this for a shoot 'em up, but the game is called Mookie Fighters, and this is a horizontal scrolling shoot 'em up, and just judging by its looks right off the bat, you might assume that it's just an average horizontal scrolling shoot 'em up, with one major exception, that it's like Katamari, and I'm not even kidding, where once you destroy like a ship or something, an enemy ship, no matter how small or how big they are, there's a time where they don't just disappear or explode. They fall down, and you can actually catch them and expand your ship. So it's like Katamari Damacy meets a shoot 'em up, and it's just the most bizarre thing. So you can just destroy like the enemies, but at the same time you're dodging bullets. You can try and collect their ships and expand and expand and expand. Now the advantage to that is obviously you have more freedom to get hit and stuff like that, because if you get hit, it's just going to destroy whatever part that is, and you don't actually die until the main core of the ship is destroyed. So it's just a super interesting mechanic. I never thought someone would try and do Katamari Damacy meets to shoot 'em up, but it's awesome. It works well. Various stages, various levels. There's like bosses at the end of each level, and it's just a really fun game. The music is awesome, and the presentation is awesome, but it's just absurd to see like this big chunk of like enemy ships fighting, and like to be controlling it, and that's you, just a big chunk of enemy ships, and you can collect like tiny little ships to like big ships and all that. It's just absolutely absurd, but just an absurdly awesome game with a very unique concept. So definitely check out Mookie Fighters, definitely my personal favorite by Kenta Cho. And the next game I want to mention is not only a great Japanese indie shoot 'em up, or just a great indie shoot 'em up in general, it is actually one of my all-time favorite shoot 'em ups, which is kind of crazy for just being a random Japanese indie shoot 'em up, but it is fantastic, and that is Dyad Empty. And this is an awesome game made by Icewind and Frozen Orb. This is essentially, at its core, it is open world exploration shoot 'em up. So it's arena based, but like you're in this big open area where you have the freedom to maneuver wherever you want, and you're fighting waves and waves of enemies that generate at like random areas on the map. And sometimes you gotta maneuver, like, you'll kill the enemies in one region, and then there's no one there, and then you have to like dash across the map to kill some more enemies. And basically what you do is you try and wipe out all the enemies to progress, and eventually the boss will come out towards the end of the level, and it'll be this massive just boss that is, as they get harder and harder, it gets crazy, like a bullet hell shoot 'em up or something. But also after the end of each stage, in between stages, you collect coins along the way, and you have the option to power up like your ship and like your shots and stuff like that. And you power up your shots, and you can choose what you want, like range and stuff like that. And there's various things you can power up, so you kind of have the freedom to choose your setup basically. But it is epic, and it's pretty simple. You have like a turbo dash button, which is going to come in real handy because since this is like a big open area, you're going to be using your dash button a lot to kind of progress through and get to some certain areas really quick. And you obviously have a shot button, but the interesting thing is, since enemies come from like everywhere, pretty much like 360 degrees, you can shoot left and right. And a handy feature is they have like a lock mechanic, so if you're moving left and shooting left, you can lock that and just stay like that. Or same thing, if you're shooting right, you can just lock and stay shooting right. So that comes in handy too, particularly with some of the bosses, because you can have to maneuver, not just shooting in front of the boss, but maneuver behind the boss, and it's just really elaborate. But at its core, it's gorgeous. The visual presentation is phenomenal, but what caught me off guard is actually the soundtrack. The soundtrack is actually really fantastic, especially for a game of this caliber. But overall, it's just like as you play it, you realize something, and that is that it is an extremely high quality game. Like, there's not much issues with it. It works, and for what's going on the screen, it doesn't suffer from too much slowdown, which is kind of surprising. And it's just an interesting take on a shoot 'em up, like an open world shoot 'em up, and it works so well and it's so epic. And as you get through some of the later stages, some of the bosses are just insane, and like some of the bullets on the screen is just beyond me at times, and it's just a really awesome game, super fun. So if you like shoot 'em ups, this is definitely one of the most high quality shoot 'em ups you can find on the PC, and that is Dyad Empty. And there you have it. That is my first, or I guess technically my first indie game spotlight episode. So it definitely feels good to be back doing this. I've always wanted to make a return to talking about indie games, and I know some people don't find indie games interesting or don't care, so I apologize. So, but I definitely plan on doing more of these because me personally, I love indie games, and I think they mean a lot for the gaming industry. But definitely thank you for watching this kind of introductory revival episode. I definitely plan on doing more. So definitely stay tuned, and until next time, I'll catch you guys later. Thank you for watching. Bye, guys.